I really want to talk about what I would consider the most important spiritual component of your life. It really is this, and I'm going to talk about it in just a moment. What is that? I'm not going to let you know just quite yet, but the quality has the potential to steer your life in the direction that God wants you to the most. There's a bunch of different components to a spiritual life, of course, but this one right here, you'll understand it when you think about something physical like a sport or a marriage or a work kind of thing. If you want to become a better employee, a better boss, whatever, this component can radically change your life. It's the key to physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, relational health. And I've been thinking about my life, and there's a bunch of different components to my life that I want to get healthy. Obviously, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial. I want to all that. I want to be a healthy individual because I represent Jesus Christ, and He wants the best for our lives. And so, this pre-decision, this guardrail, we've been talking about guardrails. Here we go. Has the potential to radically change your life. And so, this is what it is. We need to pre-decide. And the guardrail is this: I will be consistent. Everybody say, "I will be consistent." And maybe you can kind of add that. You don't need to physically say that, but with God's help, I will be consistent. Now, how many of us in your life, it doesn't have to be with God, but with school or with sports or with exercise or food or relational or financial, you've been kind of inconsistent from time to time over the last 30 years, say? Like at least once. Okay, you could say yes. Because when it comes, thank you for being so involved, but I do appreciate that. But I will be consistent. I believe with all my heart that consistency is the number one key to a spiritual growth regimen, if you want. This has to be number one. And really an all-around healthy and growing life. If I want to be healthy physically, for example, if I want to lose my little, I don't drink beer, but if I have a little beer gut, it's like an ice cream gut. It's a coffee gut, ice cream gut. If I want to lose that, then I got to be consistent. I can't say I'm going to quit ice cream for like 30 minutes or one day or whatever, and then decide I'm going to do. I have to be consistent in it. How many of us would agree with that? When it comes to this is just an example. This is not a sermon on physical health, even though it could be your takeaway. But I can't be the physical self that I desire to be if I'm inconsistent in my exercise or my eating habits, or if sometimes there's been times in our past where I said I want some salad. And I know that's kind of shocking to all of us, but the reality is, I ruin it by putting a bunch of garbage on it, a bunch of cheese, right? A lot of dressing. Anybody there with me, right? I want a lot of Catalina dressing. It's that orange kind of French. It's usually called French, but I don't know. There's another one that says Catalina. It's kind of similar, but it's really good. It's life-changing. I'm just saying that might be your takeaway right there. But the fact is, many people, including myself, were inconsistent in different areas of life. I'm inconsistent when I eat. I do have a desire to exercise. I do. Pepsi, for the most part, the last 12, almost 13 years, has made it so I don't have to quite exercise and do all the workout routine that we've done in the past, because I break even, in a sense. But getting older, I can't just rely on that kind of stuff. I'm not working as fast as I used to, right? And so, not that I'm cutting corners, I can't physically take like 5 12-packs and run them really quick as fast as I can. I get paid by the hour, by the way, and that's just between me and you. But it's the fact is, I have a desire to exercise, but I'm inconsistent in it. I have a desire to read the Bible every single day. This may shock you, I'm a pastor. I miss once in a while. You don't, I get it, but I do. Once in a blue moon, there may be times where I go to bed, I'm going, I haven't even picked up a Bible today. And I have no excuse. My phone has a Bible on it. It's over there. I have a phone on my I have a phone on my Bible. I have a Bible on my phone. So I have no excuse. But so I missed a couple times with prayer. I may pray in the car, but I'm talking about that deep prayer where I'm really connecting with God, and I cry out to Him with the things that I'm struggling with, and He's loving me. I accept His love. I receive His love. But I'm talking about the prayers that God, Lord, bless this day. Lord, be with me. Those are fine, but He's blessing me. He's with me, okay? I'm talking about like standing in the gap for people who are struggling. I'm praying for people. I'm praying for situations. I'm fighting. God is fighting my battles, but I'm with them, heart and soul. And sometimes I am inconsistent with the types of prayers that I do. Sometimes I get up in my car, or get up and I go in the car and I go, thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for work. Amen. And that's fine. That's a great start. But sometimes people can't even get to on time consistently, right? I won't split the church up if you can get to things on time. In my family, when we were supposed to be at something, we were there half an hour early. Anybody else there? That's how my family was. And but consistency is the key. Now I'll give you an example. When Hayden was younger, now he's home with the flu. He's getting better, but he's got that sickness that everyone seems to be getting. But when he was younger, and listen, I'm the man of the house, and that means that I have the responsibility to lead my family in God. Okay, not just as a pastor, but as a man. A couple years ago, we had a Bible in a year. It was chronological. Now, the problem was in a chronological Bible, it jumps everywhere in the Bible. The Bible's not written in chronological order, maybe in Genesis and Exodus, but a few of them, you like the book of Job comes right after a few chapters of Genesis, if you knew that or not. It does. And so I made a goal. Remember that? We're going to read every single day, and we did. But reading the book of Job, and I love the book of Job, I don't know why, it makes everything I deal with seem minute, even though it's not, but compared to Job, you ever read Job? Try reading it with a group of people, like 3 or 4 people in your household, and it wasn't the easiest book to go through. It wasn't. And I got not discouraged, but it was like, man, we're reading like 3 chapters of Job, and it was just kind of, it wasn't very encouraging. Am I allowed to say that around here? He had friends that tried to give him bad advice, and it's like some people take those verses and make doctrine out of them, and it's bad advice. They're wrong about who God is. And so we stopped. I stopped. Why? It's my responsibility it started as inconsistent. We missed a day, missed 2 days. We go, okay, we're going to start it on Monday again. We did it, and then it was until next Monday again. We were very inconsistent. And the more inconsistent you get with Bible reading, it doesn't have to be a family thing, it's easier to just give up with the whole thing because you get discouraged, you feel like a failure, and I feel like a failure. But anybody can become inconsistent on things. And, I can dwell on this point, like, oh, I can't believe I failed at that. I can get depressed at how much I failed at leading my family. But the point is, consistency has to start somewhere in your faith with God or with Bible reading or prayer or church or work or exercise. It starts today. It doesn't start yesterday. If you want to be consistent, and just pick an area of your life and pinpoint that you need to be more consistent in. And maybe you need to become a better employee, a better worker, better spouse, whatever. Just pinpoint that. Or a better student, whatever, and say, this. I want to be more consistent. When does consistency start? Today, not yesterday. And so I love this. As I read the Bible, I learn about the Apostle Paul. I love the Apostle Paul because I love reading. Look, this may seem weird, but especially when it comes to the Bible, I love reading someone else's bad news. Okay? Because I deal with stuff sometimes and I receive bad news. So when I have the Apostle Paul giving some bad news, it kind of makes me feel good about my life. Because it doesn't give me permission to be inconsistent, but it gives me permission to look in the mirror and say, you know what? Everything that I am dealing with is very common and very normal on this if you're human. If you're superhuman and you never miss a day of the Bible reading or prayer, then this will not make you feel good. But if you're inconsistent, or you struggle with that idea of I want to grow in God, and you have a problem with consistency in it, this will make you feel good. So Romans chapter 7, I love it because God could have used anybody to write most of the New Testament. Did you know Paul wrote more words and more chapters and more books than any other person in the New Testament? It says something about God, but it says something about the Apostle Paul too, that God trusted him enough to write the majority of the New Testament where we get a lot of our doctrine. And so if I'm God, I'm glad I'm not, but if I'm God, I wouldn't choose the Apostle Paul after he admitted something in Romans 7. Okay? If I read Romans 7, this to me is a deal breaker to me. I'm sitting there going, you're done, Paul. Now you're back on the JV junior varsity team. It brings me back to it being in sports. I was really never on varsity except for one wrestling match. It's because the guy got sick. I lost in 12 seconds, so back on JV I went. Because I thought this is my opportunity to show off, but you get pinned in 12 seconds, you're going back on JV. And I was lucky to do that because I was able to beat my best friend in practice and get to the JV team, not the C team. You know what a C team is? You get to see everybody wrestle, and that's it, from the sidelines. But Romans 7:15 is one of the most understandable verses of all the Bible. You don't have to raise your hand, but you're going to feel good about this. Romans 7, we'll start with verse 15 and we'll jump to verse 18 and 19, but he kind of rambles like I do, and he repeats himself like I do. Okay, so that's why I like Paul more than anything. Because I don't really understand myself. Pause. You could just go home right there. Right? Do you understand everything about yourself? No, I don't. I look and go, what a bonehead. I don't really understand myself. For I have a desire. I want to do what's right. And I think we all do. We all want to be a better employee, a better student, a better reader, a better with our finances, I want to be a better father. I want to be a better spouse. I want to be a better preacher. I want to be a better pastor. But he goes, I don't even understand myself, for I want to do what's right, but I don't do it. Now, do you think that Paul sometimes did it right? Of course he did. Okay, so what he's talking about here is inconsistency. There are times where he goes, you know what, I know I'm doing wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. Instead, I do what I hate. Now listen, I know we know this, but look at the obvious. This man has just admitted something very serious. To me, if I'm God, this disqualifies him. I need someone, if I'm going to be on the varsity team on God, I need someone that's very consistent. You never miss a day. You're doing the right thing all the time. You're perfect. Yet, God is using this man to write the majority of the New Testament, more words than anybody else, even Luke. Luke is very wordy in the book of Luke and the book of Acts. But he goes, I want to do right, but I do things I hate. You don't need to raise your hand, but how many of us, you agree with, you understand what he's saying? And then verse 18, he repeats himself, but I had to. He says, I want to do what's right, but I can't. He says, I can't. He says, it's not he won't. He can't. There's something about our sinful nature that's always pulling at us. I want to do what's good, but I don't. I don't want to do what's wrong, but I do it anyway. Paul's repeating himself on purpose, going, I don't like what I see when I look at myself in the spiritual mirror of my life. I don't like it. I'm inconsistent at best. And I can't tell you how encouraging those verses are. For someone human, if you are human, you're going to love these verses. I don't have a tattoo, but if I did, I need to have it over that burn. But anyway, I burned myself the other day, and it feels great. But imagine writing this and tattooing this on your arm. I want to do what's right, but I can't. Someone would say, that's not even the Bible. Like, what is that? That's just human nature. And I would agree. But that's what Paul said. And so my side note to all this is, if you're inconsistent, now today is the day of consistency. But if you've messed up in your past, you can still be used by God in major ways. Paul is the perfect example of that. And so I sometimes find myself depressed that I'm inconsistent. But if that's you too, this message is for you. So what I want to do is I want to call this message, if I want to, the power of consistency. We'll talk about this if you're getting a little nervous, because you're saying, Pastor, Paul even said he's inconsistent. So how do I become consistent forever? And we'll talk about that in a minute, because I'm going to say right now, you can't be consistent in everything forever until the day you die. Okay? But over the years in this church, in different sermons, I had to look back at my notes. I have them all saved. And there's been a quote that I've said over the years, because preachers tend to rehash certain things that are important. And one of them is this statement that I want to put on the screen, but the quality of our decisions will determine the quality of our life. If I want to do the right thing, if I want my life to be a biblical, godly God-honoring life, I just have to make better decisions. I have to do the work. I have to spend more time with God. I've got to read my Bible. I've got to spend time with the church. I've got to worship. I've got to spend time with Him. If that's my goal, if I don't care about that, then I don't need to make good decisions. It won't matter. But I have a sneaking suspicion that you guys want to honor God with your life, and so do I. I want to do what's right in God's eyes. I want to do right for His kingdom. I want to advance the kingdom of God in this town, in this community, in the valley. I really do. But I have to start by saying, Lord, with your help, I will be consistent. But you have to help me, God. You have to help me. So that's what I'm going to say is with God's help, I will be consistent. See, we make our decisions, and our decisions really make us. Okay? We can't wait for the heat of the moment of a battle to make a decision. Like if I'm in the middle of a battle, and one day I wake up and something major happens in my life, all of a sudden I go, you know what, I think I need to start trusting God today. That's a wrong time to make that decision. You need to decide right now, I'm going to decide right now, Lord, you're trustworthy, and even if I don't see what's going on in what you're doing, I choose right now to trust you no matter what. So that when you're in the heat of the moment, when you're in a battle, when your back's against the wall, you can actually continue what you've already been practicing for however long. Now, I want to say something that I've heard before, and I was reminded of it this week. It's that successful people, and if you want to be successful, I'm talking about success in God's eyes, but even successful people in the world, secular success, even like sports or a business or finances, whatever, successful people do consistently what others do occasionally. I thought about this. I remember I was talking about this a couple years, 5-6 years ago, and the number one example I thought about wasn't very spiritual, but it was my goal when I was a little kid. I love baseball, but the most I love basketball. I stopped watching basketball after the Sonics moved, so I love football now more than anything. I love football a lot. I love the Seahawks, but I love the NBA until the Sonics moved. And I said I would never watch it again until the Sonics came back to Seattle, and it's hopefully happening. But you know what? When I was a little kid, I had this goal. I wanted to be in the NBA. Anybody else wanted to be in sports or an astronaut or something that's way out there? I knew I wanted to be an astronaut too, but I wasn't good enough at math. Okay, you have to be kind of brilliant, and I wasn't that brilliant. But I wanted to be a basketball player. And do you know that if you want to become a good basketball player, there is 2 qualities that you have to have. You got to have you got to have natural talent. It's just a fact. But number 2, even more important in my opinion, you got to have consistency in your training and your practice. Did you know that Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team? And so I can't remember why, but he obviously didn't seem to have natural talent. But he worked his tail off, and when he got to college in North Carolina, I think he made the team, he was starter, and in my opinion, this may split people online, but he was the greatest, and I hate saying this out loud, he was the greatest basketball player ever, in my opinion. Okay? And part of the reason is I think he had talent, yes. I mean, for sure. But he was consistent. And he didn't when he got cut from the team in high school, he didn't let that deter him and give up. He was consistent in his practice. Do you know the chance of me becoming a good basketball player right now is 0%? Why? Because I don't practice. In fact, last weekend, they were making cookies at the school for Valentine's Day, and Lydia was there all day. She was going to be there for 5 seconds, but she was there all day. You know how it goes. So I go there and I say, you know what? I don't know how to decorate cookies, so I'm going to go there and clean. And I get there and I'm cleaning up, and these 2 basketball players, one's really good, the other one, they're both good, but one, he's going to be in college playing basketball, and he's tall. And I see them shooting, I go, ooh, I want to shoot a hoop. Now, how long has it been since I shot a basketball? Oh, probably 3 years ago. I'm being serious. And I shot a 3-pointer. There's no 3-point line in that multi-purpose room, but I shot it where it would be, and I at least hit the rim. So I was successful in my opinion. And then I said, okay, David, come here. I said, give me the ball. Hold on. and I did a free throw. And you notice I was a left-handed basketball, and that's beside the point. But I shot the basket, and it was a swish. Now, I could use that as a sign to start going into the NBA, but the fact is, I have 0% chance because I'm not even inconsistent. I'm 0%, and that's less than inconsistent. Inconsistent is I'm playing basketball every 2 months, but I haven't played basketball forever. Last time I did actually play basketball with a bunch of pastors, I sprained my hurt ankle, and they all laughed at me, thought I was faking, but that's beside the point. It was my weak ankle. But, so, I want to show you right now, and I joke about basketball, but if you want to have success in God's eyes especially, you got to do what most people do occasionally, or non-existent. You got to be consistent in the things. So what we want to do is we want to read, if you have a Bible, you can turn to Daniel chapter 6. And if you want a little more detail on Daniel, I can't remember when I preached about the book of Daniel. And I did a few series in a row about this whole time when the Babylonians came and they kidnapped and they took the Israelite people. Do you remember that story? They took them all to a different country. Daniel was one of those guys, and I love that series. I almost want to do it again because it was so exciting. I can't remember what other books of the Bible are. It's the same time frame. And what you find is that Daniel was a lot of things, but when you look at Daniel's story, he had number one quality of the entire, I would say he stands among all the Bible heroes, okay, in consistency. He was consistent in the things that matter when everybody else, including me, is inconsistent. And so we're going to look about that, and we're going to look about that in a few verses in chapter 6 of Daniel, but let's look at some context first, because in 605 BC, the Babylonians, they began to take and abduct the Jewish people. And what they were doing, they were picky. They were picky about who they're choosing. They were choosing the brightest. They were using the smartest people. About 12 years old, they would go to every 12-year-old and they'd give them some kind of cognitive test. How smart are they really? And they'd pick and choose them. They'd say, we want to choose you for our leadership program. We're going to let you serve under King Darius. And you're not going to become king. You're just going to serve under him. But we need someone that's going to be brilliant. And Daniel was there among the rest of them, and he stood out among the whole group. King Darius loved Daniel. And as a young man, he had incredible consistency. He was listen, this is what I mean by consistency. He was the same day in and day out. It didn't matter if it was snowing 20 feet. It didn't matter if it was sunny. See, I'm usually in a better mood when there's really a lot of sunshine. When I wake up and there's more snow than I thought, I was like, ugh. What a wonderful way to start my day with that kind of ugh. I know you guys all woke up and ready for Sunday and ready to go. I was sitting there going, do I have to? Right? But he was consistent no matter what. Was he perfect? No. But he was consistent. And so what happened was King Darius wanted to promote Daniel. He wanted him to be like his second command. And the other leaders of the group, they were very jealous, and they wanted to get rid of Daniel because they thought he was going to take their spot. And so what they did was they watched him. They tried to dig up some dirt on him. Now, the interesting thing is, if someone looks at you enough and does research about you, I bet you they can find some kind of dirt on you and me. I bet you they can. Now, I don't know, I can guarantee you Daniel's not perfect. Why? Because that would make him God, and he was not perfect. But let's see if they can find any dirt on Daniel, because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to kick him out because of his character. And so look at verse 4 of Daniel chapter 6. Then the other administrators and high officers, the other leaders, they began searching for some fault in the way that Daniel was handling government affairs. Purposely, they were looking at how he was dealing with government. Listen. When was the last time, and I'm not talking left or right, I'm talking both, when was the last time that you found out that government officials were doing nothing shady? Decades? 100 years? 200 years? I don't know. A long time. What we're finding out is it's a little bit shadier than even we thought. Okay? We're not going to get into that today because then I'll get very upset and I don't want to pay taxes. We won't even get into that. But it's been a long time. See, shady stuff happens with power and money. So when you're in leadership, it's easy to do shady stuff. And you can find it out. The paper trail's long. Sometimes you have to dig deep. But look at this. They were seeing some fault, but they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn when it comes to leadership. I don't know if that's the only place they were looking at. He was faithful. He was always responsible. And he was completely trustworthy. Think about that as a government official. You're faithful. You're always responsible, and you're completely trustworthy. Put anybody in there, any government official that we have, are they 100% that all the time? I would say 0% of our government can be like that all the time. Okay? And that's not to offend anybody. It's just sometimes, let's just be honest. Right? Power does a lot to people. Money does a lot to people. And vice versa. Blend the two. But for Daniel, they literally couldn't find anything. And so they were really frustrated with that because now they said, you know what? I have to go after his faith in God. So they go to King Darius with this brilliant plan. Now I have this entire thing planned up in my mind. They come up to King Darius and they bow down to him because that's what you did when you sucked up to the king. Kissed his ring, kissed his feet, whatever. And you said, oh, King Darius, high king, the king of all kings, we love you, we serve you, we have a good idea. Let's make a decree for 30 days that any one of these Jewish people that are in your country, sir, remember, we love you. 30 days, if anyone worships any other god besides you, King Darius, almighty king, king of kings, then you get to throw him in the lion's den. They said, we can get him this way. And he says, that's a wonderful idea. Until he thought about Daniel. Because he loved Daniel. He did. He thought Daniel was a good, great person. But he goes, I'm going to sign that into law. Let's sign a decree right now. If you worship any other god beside me, King Darius would say, we're going to throw you in the lion's den. What does that mean? Death sentence. Are you guys ready to go in a lion's den and fight 20 lions in a den? You may be able to defeat one or two. Or half of, but one of them is going to eat your face off or whatever. And so what happens? Remember, he's consistent. So what does he change? What does he do differently? Let's look at verse 10 of Daniel 6. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, listen, now all of a sudden he's going to be killed for his faith in God. Okay, that's the new law. But he went home and he knelt down as usual. Everybody say as usual. As usual. He didn't change anything. He did the normal thing. Even though something changed on the outside, it was a negative thing. He went home and he knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with the windows open towards Jerusalem. That was a very Jewish thing, to pray towards Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done. Now, I want to be very clear here. I believe with all my heart that he missed a day or two in his life. It says he had always done. Look, that's a very fancy way of saying this was his habit. It had become the norm more than not. Okay? But he prayed 3 times a day just as he always had done, giving thanks to his God. I love that. The law was given that he could die for serving God. What did he change? Really nothing. The first thing he did was go to his prayer closet. He opened up his windows, and he did exactly the same thing that he did. He did that because he chose at some point when he was a young man, you know what, God? I'm going to pray and seek your face. I'm going to be with you. And the leaders find this out, that he was up there praying. They could hear him. Guaranteed they can hear him. And they decided to throw him in the lion's den. Now, the king wasn't happy with this thing, but he had to go by his word. He couldn't look like a weak leader. And so he took him and he threw Daniel in the lion's den. It was over. They're done. Let the lions take care of the mess. And so he will die for being consistent and being honoring God. So when he was in the lion's den, a supernatural thing happened, which I believe in the supernatural, I do. And he's in there praying. I can't help but think about VeggieTales when it comes to this. This light shines. He's all smiling, happy, and order pizza. And order pizza. Is that what it was? It was good for Hayden when he was a little kid. But in reality, the angel of the Lord came and shut their mouths and maybe had tea together or something. I don't know. But had pizza together. Here, you can have pizza and have some Pepsi, that kind of thing. But that's what God did. And I love this. But in verse 23, so he's alive. Verse 23 of chapter 6 says this. The king, after hearing the news that he was alive, the king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the dead. Why? Because he really liked him. A leader always wants someone that's going to be consistent. He's going to be faithful. He's not going to waver. He's going to be the same day in and day out. Do you think God is the same way? He knows we're going to fail, but does he want, for the most part, he wants all of us to be consistent day in, day out, no matter what happens on the outside. No matter if we have a lot of money or we have nothing. No matter if it snows a foot. Dear God, please don't have that happen. Or if it's sunny, that'd be great. But we need to be consistent. That's what God is looking for. But not a scratch was found on Daniel, for he had trusted in his God. I like that. So here's a good question. This is my point. When did Daniel learn to trust God? Did he learn to trust God the moment he got in the lion's den? Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on, lions. Let me open a book right now. Hold on. Let me see. What does the Bible have to say about that? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Okay. Lord, I trust. And by that time, the lions have already eaten him. So he doesn't have time to learn it when he's in the heat of the moment. When his back is against the wall, literally. He doesn't have time for that. He didn't learn to trust God when the battle was going on. He actually learned to trust God earlier. He learned it in his prayer closet. Not literally, but wherever you find yourself praying, that's where he learned it. He learned it in the middle of praying. His faith was not built in the middle of battle. His faith was built a long time ago. He woke up when he was a young man and he made a choice. I'm going to be faithful to God. And when I fall, when I miss a day, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it again. I'm not going to miss 2 days. If I miss a prayer time, if I miss a Bible reading plan, no big deal. I'm getting up and I'm going. That's what consistency really means. Not, well, I missed a day, God's mad at me, I guess I got to start from square one. No. This is a journey we're on, and the journey is very windy. If you like it, I like it better. It's like a roller coaster. And she doesn't like roller coasters, and I know that because when I first met her, we were at this place, and I kind of made fun of her because she was like really scared. And I was like, don't do that ever again. I didn't really know her that much at the time. Now I would never. But she was watching this guy on YouTube, and the roller coaster was going like this and upside down, and the guy's like screaming, ah! And I was like, that would be her, okay? But that's more what life is like than just a nice little drive on Route 66, just going down the road and looking at stuff from the side, because that would be a good drive too. Or when we were going through Nevada one time to California, there's a straight shot for like 3 hours straight. You can see a road way up there, and I could almost put my hands off. I would take a Tesla, and I would trust a Tesla automatically driving on that road. Would I trust it on this road? Probably not. But I would trust on that road. But that's what life's like. We got to understand what the journey is like. It is a roundabout. And you're dizzy and you're sick and that's what it's like. You got to learn to love the journey you're on. Now, why do we struggle though? Well, it's because what Daniel did consistently, we do occasionally. Or when I have time, or when I feel like it, when I'm not too busy. See, what we do occasionally from time to time doesn't change anything. I'll never be a good basketball player just by playing basketball once every 10 years or 20 years. Okay? I was lucky making that free throw. There's a reason why they call it free throw. Nobody's blocking you. But when you do something consistently, time in and time out, you'll fall, you're human, but you get back up and you do the same thing the next day, over and over. Those are the people that's their lives will change. So how do we're going to be done in just a moment, but how are we going to grow in consistency? Well, there's 3 things I want to tell you. We'll get a game plan. And these 3 things will help you in your consistency. And so let's do the overview. And these 3 are not going to be long, but we're going to start with the why. We'll get in that in just a second. Then we're going to plan to fail. This is my favorite because we give ourselves permission to say, I'm not going to be perfect because I'm going to fail at something. Because then when you fail and you don't plan for it, you get disheartened. Your heart is just like, you're not in it anymore, and you just walk away from things. Okay? Then you got to fall in love with the process of your life. So those are the three things. If you want to grow in consistency, you've got to start with the why in your life. Why? Why do you do what you do in your life? Well, let's start with the why. Now, this is important. You don't say, what am I going to do with my life? You say, why am I doing this with my life? In other words, you don't say what you're going to do. You just say, why? Give yourself the purpose about why you're doing what you're doing. Why did Daniel pray consistently? Why? That was a good question that I was thinking about the other day. Why did he pray consistently? What's the point? Well, his prayer life wasn't an outward show like what the Pharisees would do later on. They were all about outward appearance. The only reason they prayed is to make them sound, they sounded so religious. They sounded so professional. People were like, ooh, can I write that down, that prayer? That prayer sounds so good. And they started speaking in different, I'm going to speak in King James English because I sound so Shakespearean. I'm sounding so good. The reality is, God doesn't want us to be phony. He just wants us to be real with him. And that's what Daniel was. His why was, he went alone, he prayed 3 times a day. Why? Because he was devoted to his God. No matter what happens in my life, he would say, I want to honor God. I want to be devoted to God. I want, no matter what happens, I actually serve him more than I serve King Darius, more than I serve these yahoos that are surrounding him with these high officials. I'm serving them with all my heart, but more than that, I'm serving my God. So I'm going to honor God. That's why he spent time in prayer. It wasn't because he, quote, had to. It's because he wanted to. And God will give us that desire, but it starts with the why. Why? See, the question I asked as I was practicing this yesterday is, why do I want to be devoted to God? Why do I want to be devoted to my family? Why do I want to be devoted to you guys as a church? Why do I want to be devoted to my job? Why? Because I want to honor God. That's my number one why in my life. You can come up with your own, but that's a good one, by the way. No matter what you fill your life with, no matter what you eat for dinner, no matter how your work day goes, no matter how your work week goes, no matter if everybody around you is like a pain in the rear end, that might not change. What needs to be consistent is your why. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and my why is going to remain the same. I want to honor God. And that will help us to be consistent. When I miss a day of Bible reading, I go, you know what? I'm not going to beat myself up. God's not beating myself up. I want to pick myself up, dust my knees off, and I'm going to start again. Why? Because I want to honor God. I want to spend time with God. I want to honor God with my life. That's the why. If you start with the why, if you determine what your why is, not what people always say, what does God want me to do with my life? That's the wrong place to start. The starting point is why. Why do I exist? Why does God have me here on planet Earth? Just to float around? No. So start with the why. Now, this second one is my favorite, plan to fail. And this will be good news if you're human. If you're superhuman, you're just giving us permission to fail. No. When you fail, you pick yourself up, allow God, maybe more biblically, you allow God to pick you up, dust you off, and you can keep going. It's not just you, I'm doing my own power. No, God picks you up, he sets you back on the path, and he says, let's do it again. But Lord, I just did this the other day. He goes, I know. I just did it again. I know. I just fell back flat on my face. I know. He says, I know. And he dusts you off and he says, let's go. So you need to plan to fail. And this is so important because if you don't plan to fail, you will lose heart when you do fail and feel like it's the end of the road for you. Because, and this may not be you might not say it out loud, but in my life, when I was first a Christian, I had this horrible thought. If I fail God, he's going to be so disappointed in me and so mad at me that he's going to give up on me. I was so nervous for messing up because I thought that God would be so disappointed and going, And the reality is, the reason why I thought that is because of humans in my life that had done that. Okay? We humans and parents, we fail all the time. We are the ones that shake our head and go, we shouldn't do that. But God, when he sees his son or his daughter fail and fall flat on his face, he loves you. He picks you up and he says, let's do it again. That's what consistency is. Consistency is not literally not missing a day. Consistency is saying, you know what? I recognize for what I am, I'm going to fail. But God, help me up, and I'm going to keep going. That's how you learn consistency. It will become easier the next time. And the next time you fall, it's a journey. Plan to fail. We think if we fail one time, we're a failure. See, the good news is being consistent isn't the same as being perfect. Give yourself the grace to fail. Keep it simple. See, my goal with reading, I'll give you an example. I want to read the Bible every single day. Duh. That should be the case. I want to read the Bible every day. I want to pray. I made it my goal. I don't know when I did this, but I said, Lord, if I miss one day with you, I'm not going to miss two. Period. I will find, if I'm going my second day and I'm going to bed and I haven't read the Bible again, I'm going to grab my Bible. Why? It's not legalism. It's not. I want to spend time with God. And I know he desires a relationship with me. But being consistent is not the same as being perfect. Now last, because I think the illusion of perfection is keeping us from actually starting. The last one is so important. Fall in love with the process. The process of life. The process of discipleship. The process of growing in God. The process of becoming more mature in your faith. Fall in love with the process, not the end goal. Let me ask you, let me take a poll. How many of us, you're at the end of your entire walk with God? You're there. You're at the journey's end. That's called death, by the way. And last time I checked, people were breathing, hopefully. It's hard to tell sometimes, but you're breathing, yes. So we always then think about, in anything, the end goal. That we completely forget about the journey that's there. If I want to become a great husband, if I keep my eyes set on perfect husband, great husband, I'm going to forget about how good the journey is to get there. Because again, like anything, this is a learning curve. If I want to become a great husband, I got to learn. And it may take a while because I'm human, okay? But if I wake up one day and I take one step forward, this is how, she was kind of making fun of me because I was practicing yesterday in the house, and she said baby steps, which is from a movie, What About Bob, which I highly recommend. But he's like, baby steps to how many of us have ever seen that? Baby steps to the office, right? Baby steps to, and she was like, you're going to say baby steps. And I said, it's in my notes, so yes, I'm going to. If you wake up and you take one step closer to God, that might not be good enough for you, but listen, it's good enough because it's still process. It's still progression. You're still deep in your walk with God. Some of us are still focused on getting to the end on anything. That we're not, you know what? We're trying to get to the very end of our journey on anything, not with God, not just with God, but with everything, that we are miserable in the process. Aren't you sick of being miserable? I am. The reason why is because we're so focused on the end goal that if we never get there, what we think is the end goal, that we're miserable the entire time. And we think that it's the most Christian thing in the world to be miserable our entire life. It's more spiritual to be miserable. I don't know where we got that from. If I've had people say, well, I'm just miserable, and I think that's just because that's just how God has us. He wants us to be miserable. I'm like, where do you get that from? The book of Hesitations? That's not in the Bible, the book of Hesitations. It's just a made-up book, but chapter 5 or whatever, Hesitations. But, you know, most of us get obsessed with the end goal. I have to lose 20 pounds. I need to read the Bible consistently for a year. I have to make a church priority. So we feel like we don't succeed before we get to the end goal. How about you wake up one day, you decide, you know what, God, with your help, I'm going to be consistent, and you take one step forward. It doesn't seem like a big thing. So you go, you know what? I did good today. And that's growth. If I get, hopefully, if I'm a great husband, the one step closer to having a great I would say I have a good marriage. I think we're healthy, more healthy than we've ever been. Are we perfect? No, of course not. But if I want to become a better husband, one step forward, that's great progress. Better than going this way, right? So people are I'm going to jump from over here in that stool and try to get a good relationship with Lydia by taking one jump. Well, I'm going to hurt myself, guaranteed, with that big jump. I used to take pride in trying to jump long distances, and that's why I wasn't a long jumper, because I would fail and hurt myself, and I would be a fool. But as we close, you need to pray the prayer, what I have done for a couple days, even a couple years. Lord, with your help me to be consistent. And that means more than just your relationship with God, but it starts there, and it will branch out from there. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. And as we get ready to end this series next week, God, help us to grow in you. Help us to do the things that you are calling us to. Help us to serve you with more fervor and more excitement than we ever have. We want to be on this journey together, and we want to enjoy the process and the progress that we're making. Help us to see that for what it really is, God. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.